Duck fat. Makes all the difference.
Resident Evil 4 Remake is one of the most fun games I've played in recent memory. The last game to make me think about it while trying to sleep was probably last year's Elden Ring. Whenever I shut off the game, I would be excited for my next play session already. All because the core gameplay loop of finding meaningful loot, having to micromanage by carefully choosing which gun and associated ammo to use, as well as perform well in combat to use up as little resources as possible, is designed very tightly and it's just plain fun. You are fighting the plagas-infested villagers, your typical zombie substitutes, delivering roundhouse kicks and taking them to Suplex City. They can drop either ammo or money, aka I'm not pronouncing that. The money is used for either buying new guns, upgrading your currently used ones, or repairing your knife or bulletproof vest. Additionally, you can find treasures by exploring and solving small puzzles, which can bring you an entire heap of money depending on which gemstones you inlay them with. There is never a pointless or overwhelming amount of things to find and do, like we see in a lot of modern games. Everything serves a select clear purpose and the game ends up being much more fun for it than many others. Not surprising since this is a remake of a game out of a different time. On that note, I should mention that I never had played the original, so my praise isn't biased. I think this game is actually that good. Once I beat the game, the only thing I could think of was jumping back in to play the game all over again and try out different weapons and just be more efficient since I now know what's coming at me. Besides, I don't need a reason to play a John Wick simulator again. Now obviously I'm saying that jokingly, but this game really is the closest thing to a John Wick game, that I know of at least. Aiming for weak spots of the enemies, kneecapping them to get them on their knees to either slow them down or even better just sticking up my boot up their faces, and weaving that together with all types of weapons at my disposal like pistols, shotguns, grenades and knives. And the way he aims the gun when there's someone up in his face doesn't help. It feels really satisfying to play, especially compared to previous games where your pistol shots were nothing more than mosquito bites to the zombies. That is a product of this game basically being a full-on action game with some spooky elements sprinkled in rather than a horror game like those games, but it's pretty jarring to see how weak weapons in previous games felt compared to here. And I didn't even mention the parry mechanic. As long as you have a stable knife, you can parry most armed attacks of enemies. Besides being useful for not taking damage, more often than not the enemy will get staggered, which allows you to get a quick melee attack in. The importance of melee attacks cannot be understated. They are free damage in a game where your damage resources are limited and are useful for crowd control. They also give you a brief period of invincibility, which can sometimes really come in clutch and save you a death. It isn't rare to get swarmed by 4 to 6 enemies at once, while there are 2 or more in the back trying to snipe you with arrows or molotovs. I think the parry is a bit broken once you get the hang of it, but given the extremely aggressive nature of the enemies, it is justified. Let's talk about the story a bit. That's about it. I'm over-exaggerating. There is a story here, but it's nothing more complicated than in previous games. The president's daughter has been kidnapped somewhere to Spain, and Leon, who is now a super soldier, gets sent to bring her back. Turns out she's held hostage by a zombie cult. Then you find her, then she gets kidnapped, and then you find her again, and then she gets kidnapped again, and we repeat that until credits roll. The story really doesn't matter here. You wanna play this game to play it, not to watch it. I've seen countless memes of the original and Leon's goofy one-liners, most of which have apparently been kept. I couldn't help but notice a bit of tonal whiplash though. There are times when the game is really dark, and I don't mean that just metaphorically. The environments are not very well lit. There is some really gruesome imagery here on one hand, and on the other we got Leon who keeps telling me that he must have slipped his foot on the enemy's forehead. It helps solidify this game further as an action title rather than horror. But as I said, I can't help but feel that there is a bit of a clash here. The game plays out some stuff a little too straight, I think. Maybe if we had a goofy rival that Leon could bounce off of, it could have helped. I don't think Luis or any of the antagonists fit that bill really. Luis comes off as more of a clumsy sleazebag than an equal to Leon's typical action movie hero likeness. On that note, I do have a few more slight criticisms. The 180 turn is mapped to the R1 plus left stick down buttons if we take the PlayStation controller layout for example. Since the R1 button is used as the run button, there will be a lot of instances where you're trying to run away from an enemy, so you press R1 to run and the left stick down to turn away from the enemy. A lot of times the game registers this as you doing the 180 instead of running away, and there were a lot of instances where that almost got me killed. I just think this should have been mapped to a different button by default. Luckily, you can do that yourself or turn it off altogether in the options, so it is partially my fault for not looking this up earlier. Very small nitpick. You also can't store any ammo in your storage. Weapons and first aid sprays work, but the rest you have to carry on your person at all times. So let's say you find mag ammo early on. You have to carry those 3 mag rounds for the entirety of the game up until you use them. It's just how the game does this, and it's never really a problem. I never once had an issue with inventory space in this game because of the ammo types I had to carry around regardless of the weapon on my person. However, it's annoying. It's simply annoying and nothing more. I'd like to store the ammo of the weapon together with the weapon. I also found that things are a bit too color graphed. I don't really know what to call it. Everything that is interactable has this yellow spray paint over it. I know that it's commonplace in many games nowadays, but I can't help but feel that it takes away the fun of finding things for yourself. Instead of actually looking around the environment to see what I might be able to interact with, I am now only looking out for the yellow. There are no secrets left to find. Everything that can be found is yellow. This is something that the games that Resident Evil 4 inspired added to the formula, so to speak, and now Resi took it from them. We have basically come full circle now, but I wonder if this was really such a good thing to add. There are also some treasures that are time gated and lost for that run if you don't get them up to a specific point. Which is fair, the game is chapter based after all, but it's especially egregious in the Ashley section. If you miss any treasures in her portion of the castle, which is very short, it's GG's. You are not seeing that stuff ever again. Which is weird, because you actually can go in there as Leon, but you are not given the keys to open the chests. Ashley does drop all the obtained treasure right before getting kidnapped again, but she doesn't drop the keys? It's just weird. To talk about something positive again, I did like Ashley's character. She wasn't nearly as annoying as people made her out to be, although I am sure that is thanks to this remake. You can see that she tries to be of use and overcome her fear of the situation, instead of just waiting to be ordered around, even though that's the extent of her role in combat. However, there is one gigantic sin this game commits towards the end that I simply cannot overlook. They managed to squeeze in a forced walking segment. They just couldn't help themselves but put this dirty stain on this game's almost perfect record. It is only one, luckily, but still. Make a well choreographed animation that plays if you want to load something in the back. Make an elevator ride. Even better, make it a full extra cutscene. But I beg of you game devs, stop making me play your cutscenes for you. As I said, these are all nitpicks and don't change anything about the fact that this game slaps. The gameplay is plain fun and addicting even, and the pacing is impeccable. This is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. I'm sure this is a game I'll keep coming back to in the future. Thank you for watching, remember to sub and like if you want to see more, and see you next time. Alright Capcom, now all we need is Mega Man X11 and new Ace Attorney and Devil May Cry 6, and we're good.